We are going to talk about housing. I think we don't talk enough about housing as a force of economic development. Let's start with housing affordability in the United States and what economic developers like you can do to improve that situation. So we'll look at a timeline from 1985, which is about 40 years, till today. During this time, we've had 4 recessions, more or less. The 1990s because of oil and real estate, and then 2001 after 9/11, and then there was a following dot-com bust. And then we had the financial crisis in 2008, and then COVID. What happened during that time, you see 2 lines. One at the bottom is median household income, which you can see has increased from roughly 60,000 to roughly 80,000. That's about 35% increase in 40 years. But if you look at the purchasing power, whatever you could buy for $1 in 1985, now you have to spend $2.93, so about 300% increase. But housing, the median housing in 1985 was about 82,000, and today it's 442,000. So if you look at the increase, it's really, there was just one dip because it was a housing crisis. But otherwise, if you see the last 4 years, that's been the biggest increase in the median housing price, which is 113,000. We used to pay about 1.4x of our median income, median household income for housing. Today, it's 5.5 times. So it's become more and more unaffordable. Do we have a housing shortage? Middle-income homes that qualify for mortgage, there were about 450,000 in 2019. Today, it's 280,000. 2019 home listings, there's 1 per 46 households. Today, it's 1 per 125 households. So there's an underinvestment. There's a shortage of about 5.5 million units in the US. Why do we have this shortage? Well, small builders went out of business during the 2020 downturn because of COVID. And there was a lot of consolidation. When there is consolidation, you have less competition, you have lower supply, that leads to higher income prices, home prices. Another big thing that's happening, it's a big trend, and that's Wall Street is buying up single-family homes. They want to be landlords. They want to be in the rental business. I've seen in the news people from Wall Street saying that renting is better than owning. All our lives we've been told owning is better because you build wealth that way. So there's a difference in the messaging, and we think they own about 5% of that single-family home rental market today. But the projection is the speed at which they're going, they could own about 40% of that market. Today, mom and pop individuals, they own about 80% of that. People own 5 to 10 units, and they rent it out. But they are the ones who are now being squeezed out of that market. So rental increase, these are some markets where Wall Street has bought a lot of homes, a lot of single-family homes. So US average is about 24%, but markets where they intervene and they buy a lot of single-family homes, entire subdivisions sometimes, you see Tampa 44%, Phoenix 43%, Atlanta 35%, and there are others. So as private equity and Wall Street gets into this game, housing supply and housing affordability gets worse. What is the role of urban planning? Now, you cannot build suburban homes without roads. And the way our suburbs are planned, it's like a Ponzi scheme, right? So you build something, and then it has to be repaired, and it has to be maintained, and at some point, it has to be replaced. but you need new development to pay for the old ones. And so if your development stops, if your growth stops, then so does your density, and it becomes unsustainable. So if you look at a typical road that is built in the suburbs, it's about a 20-year lifetime, and in the 20th year, it needs to be replaced. So your cash outflow looks like this, a little bit in the first few years, and then it goes on increasing, and then in the 20th year, you have to replace it. And if the street was a business, it would be bankrupt. So what happens is most of this money has to come from federal government or the state DOT, and the suburb itself is actually just paying maybe 25% of it. And mostly the city to which that suburb is attached is paying a big chunk of it. The city centers tend to subsidize infrastructure in the suburbs. And that affects the price of housing. Now, a big impact is on talent attraction, and that's what your focus is. If you can't get talent to your communities, then your growth will stall. And housing is a big piece of that. So another thing that's happening is people who are retiring or reaching a retirement age are not able to get out of their homes, because when they sell their homes and they want to go and buy something else which is downsized, it's still very expensive. Like I said, median home today, single-family home, is about $442,000. A median condo is about $357,000. There's not a huge difference. So even if you want to downsize, it's really difficult to do so today, which basically makes generational change really difficult, and that limits the supply. If you're paying more and more of your income for housing, then you're spending less in other things, which means it reduces economic activity in your communities. Here are 3 things that you can do to improve this situation as economic developers. One thing is you have to be part of the comprehensive planning. So muscle your way through to your city planning departments and make yourself heard, because you have to be able to provide input to physical planning. What are the different physical models that your clients would need or your stakeholders would need? This will inform the planners not just about what kind of economic activity is coming, but also what kind of physical form it might take. You cannot have mixed-use development in traditional planning. A lot of cities try that, but when it comes to small, mid-sized cities, that's entirely missing. And if you have young people move to city centers, for instance, it also brings other activity, like it strengthens schools, and that's primarily the reason why people move to the suburbs. Another thing is, nothing's really changed about housing in 50 years to 70 years. And so we need to start looking at new ways to allow housing to come to the cities. Parking incentives are one way to do it. So, generally, if you have a prospect that comes in and says, we have about 500 jobs, you would direct them to the suburbs and say, this is a big box, you'll have plenty of parking, so you can just put your business out there. But if you want to bring them into the city, the reason they don't come there is because either there's not enough parking, or it's expensive and their employees don't want to pay for that. But if there are parking incentives in place, you can reduce that cost or sometimes absorb that cost to make it possible for people to come to the city center. And that brings housing to the city as well. When people work there, businesses start, and then housing developers are ready to build more. Another thing is, get ideas from around the world. Maybe there's an architect in Japan who has a great idea about what your community can do. And so have design competitions. Look at different typologies, look at different designs, different ways housing could be built. And there's not enough of that that's being done. Another thing, I think one of the panels discussed it today about property tax abatement. And there are other incentives you can provide, both home builders as well as home buyers. So if they don't have to pay property tax for, let's say, 10 years, it'll encourage them to come and live in the cities rather than just going to the suburbs where they look for housing primarily. I'm going to stop here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you.